Okay, I decided to just do one tonight because I had it in my head and I had so many thoughts, things going around of what I can talk about, what I shouldn't talk about, what maybe I could talk about, and it just made sense to do it now instead of tomorrow morning while I can ramble and get used to this. Um, yeah, it's gonna be weird to get used to the different thoughts in terms of whether I'm gonna have more breaks in my speech or not. I don't think I'm gonna have as many issues with that. I think about all of the public speaking I do and my ability to kind of talk off the cuff for that may mean I have faster thought to word kind of pipeline, but it may not be perfect. Now, maybe when I go into more in depth thought, that may change. This is going to be really interesting to see how this will change over time, mostly just regards to how I communicate, how I think normally, as well as just my abilities to do things like this. I don't know or expect changes, maybe just comfortability and less rambling, more constructive thought. But again, I don't really have a baseline for where I stand on things like this, so it's going to be hard. Most of the time, I'm probably going to do this in transfer from one spot to another. And so there's going to be more random things to talk about, especially like when I'm going to be in Austria, versus just, I don't know, lying in bed staring at my blank ceiling. I've started trying to figure out how I'm going to do the audio to YouTube. Of just right now, I'm doing a video recording next to me, um, and without my earbuds, as it doesn't record the audio through my earbuds, and I'm just going to post that. But in the future, I'm probably going to be a voice memo of some sort, trying to find a way to record it through the earbuds, and then just plug it into iMovie, add an image on it, then upload it from there. It's pretty easy to do from my phone, and shouldn't be too bad. I'm curious of how many complexities there will be of just being in a European country with data and Wi-Fi access and all that stuff, because I have no idea what that's going to look like. I'm pretty sure the place I'm staying at has Wi-Fi. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. If not, I'd find a way to basically build myself a small router and connect it to the Ethernet that should be there, um, or set up my laptop as one, which would be a pain, but is what it is. I don't really want. Actually, I have a router. Maybe I can buy that, bring that out there. But there's so many thoughts of just how I pack my life into 2 bags, which is a challenge. It's gonna be interesting of how that all works out. Anywho, yeah, like again, this has felt fairly smooth so far. It hasn't felt like I've had any gaps. Um, I don't feel like I'm needing to fill gaps with anything. It just kind of flows. Um, but I'm again curious to see, especially as it comes down to more of a call and response type thing, how this will work. Um, Especially now that you had sent something, there was definitely a big urge to have a response to it and thoughts and stuff. And so I may try to plan out when I listen to yours to be right before I record mine, both so the thoughts that in my head from whatever you said is front and center, um, to have a better response to it, but also just the urge to respond will be higher then. So it'll be easier to speak about something, I guess. Oh, I have so many different thoughts of what I can talk to about and like what I can go into of different topics, but it feels weird to change topics partway through, and I think that's something that's gonna take time to get used to, I guess. In terms of talking about thoughts and issues that I have in my head right now, ideas for future of just this entire thing, and talking meta about this form of communication, which is interesting. Um, but I think mostly what we should focus on is just how this looks and flows, and maybe the best way of doing that is just pretending that it's in a spot that's good and seeing how it works for a little while of talking normally about stuff instead of just talking about it itself, if that makes sense. See how it goes as like what it should look like, and then see if we need to change it from there. Which I guess I should then if I'm going to prove that point, stop talking about this and go into something else. I'm not going to add too much more to this because this is already at the length that you sent yours, which is wild. It does not feel that long. But, I don't know. One interesting that I want to get your thoughts in is something that I've been finding recently to be an issue. And I mean, I'm we joke about this often. I'm not expecting this to be an issue that you've run into, but I've started getting to know a lot of people. Like, when I mean a lot of people, I mean a lot of people to a level that I'd say is like just above acquaintance. And it's interesting because, like, I'm forgetting what the number's called, but there's that rough number that is instead of just how many close relationships that a human can uphold. And I'm running into that number because I'm finding myself like forgetting names and forgetting things about people who maybe like 4 months ago had been like relatively, maybe not big parts of my life, but a significant part of my life. And it's quite odd. And it's starting to get to the point where I'm starting to hurt feelings when I'm not trying to, but there's just too many people. And then I look into my past and I try to remember names from people, even at OKM or even before then. And was blanking. And I'm like, I can think maybe like a year ago, I would never forget their name. And then just people day to day, I'm forgetting names and forgetting things about them. And the amount of people that have come up to me who I know, but just I can't remember. And it's unfortunate. Like, I mean, you mentioned my social network. I'm impressed with myself of what I've been able to build, because I have at least 1 to 2 friends at almost every Canadian engineering school at this point, which means like if I go to any city or I go anywhere, I have a couch I can sleep on, I have someone I can go hang out with, and it's amazing. But that immediately gets me really close to that number of like 200, and then that's not including the large amount of friends that I have here, and then everyone from my past in both Kelowna and Surrey and so on. So it's odd. It's odd to think about, and it goes even past just forgetting names and forgetting things about people, but also just it feels like I have a harder time building those close relationships with anyone, because I'm just getting pulled into so many different directions by so many different people, and just and building these more shallow relationships, I guess. Now it may be a mix of just I don't have time normally to do a lot of stuff, and so it's less of more people wanting my attention, I'm having to spread it out, but it's just that I just have less time to spread out in general. And I guess we'll see over the next year or so, especially as I'm done presidency, what that looks like. And if that is the case, if I do have more free time, which I'm hoping I do, but you know me, that's not guaranteed. But yeah, I'm curious on your thoughts on that. Of just like, I mean, if you can think of or remember or find the name of that number of how many people you have a relationship with, and like, what does that really mean? Is that like bandwidth of any human being to be able to deal with that, or is it actually like a memory thing, like what I'm running into? Because it was always a number that like I would hear from the past, like something like Veritasium mentioned on a video or whatever, and it's just like, oh, that's interesting, but it's like that's a pretty high number. I don't think I'll ever run into it, but I am now, and it's odd. And I'm curious if it's actually like close to that number, if I'm well exceeding it, or if the relationships that I'm even having count towards that 200. Like, what is that 200 actually counting? Is that counting close relationships like what you and I have, or maybe even a little less close, or is it counting like mid acquaintances that I will talk to like once a week or even less? So I don't know. It's a curiosity. I'm very curious on thoughts on it, and maybe even philosophical side of things, less just the scientific, what the human brain and mind can withstand, and maybe possibly tips and tricks for how to combat that, of either on the memory side or the bandwidth side of like how many people I try to have that relationship with, because it may be just I'm trying too hard. I don't know. And I mean, maybe as I'm done presidencies and I move out of the public facing role, there'll be less of an issue in the future. Just people won't know me or feel the need to reach out to me like they have been. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it gets worse. Who knows? Maybe I'm just old and have Alzheimer's. But anyways, I'm gonna post this tomorrow morning because I don't want to do it right now. But yeah, talk to you later.